So guys, now let's learn about data types and type conversions. Okay, so there are mainly 6 data type in the modern JavaScript. Since this course is totally on modern JavaScript, so we are going to add one more data type, that is symbol. Okay, we will see that later in this video. So the default ones are called primitive. Okay, so I'll just write over here primitive, and the first one is string, right? So if you wanna write any kind of letters, then you have to write that inside the string, and the string, and the string should be should already be in quotation mark, maybe in single quotation or in double quotation, but it should always be inside a quotation marks. Okay, so I'll just write string over here, and let's just make a const variable called str, and that will be like hello world. You can see I use double quotation over here, but you can also use single quotation. Now let's just print that out, console.log str. Now save it. You can see it printed hello world. So this is the string format. And now if you wanna know like whether what kind of data type is it, so in that case you just need to write type of. Okay, I'll just quickly copy that thing and paste it again, and now I'll just write over here type of str. Okay, now if I save it, you can see it printed hello world, that is the str value, and the type is actually string. And now let's see numbers. Okay, so for numbers you don't need to actually put that inside a quotation. Okay, so I'll just make a variable called const age, and that will be 20, and I'll pass this age inside these two places. Okay, so now if I save it, you can see it printed 20, and the data type is actually number, right? And then there is third one, that is boolean. Boolean is basically a true and false value. True means 1, false means 0. So boolean means actually true and false. Okay, so const I'll just write has job, and that will be true. Okay, and I'll just paste this has job inside these two places. Now if I save it, you can see true is the value of has job, and the type is actually boolean. Okay, then there is a fourth type, that is null. Okay, null is basically, it will show you this is a object type, but this is a totally separate primitive type. Okay, so I'll just write const car, and that will be equals to null. Okay, and I'll just copy this car from there and paste these two places inside these two places and save it. Now you can see this is the value is null, and the data type is object, right? And there is one more thing, that is undefined. Okay, so I'll just write undefined. You can't really use these undefined data types inside a const method. You need to use where or let. So I'll just use let, and let maybe test. And now if I pass this test inside these two places again, oops, actually I just copied the whole thing, so I should copy the test and paste it over here as well as here. Now if I save it, you can see both are undefined. So the value is undefined, the data type is also undefined. And there is one more thing, that is symbol. Okay, which is added in ES6. So this is about modern JavaScript, so it should be symbol. Okay, and I'll just make a variable called simp, and that will be equals to the symbol object. Okay, and now if I pass this sim, you can see the value is symbol object, and the data type is symbol, right? And there are some other reference types. Okay, so I'll just write over here reference types. These are not the primitive one, these are like reference, like array, list, dictionaries, this kind of things. Okay, so I'll just make an array of like const arr, and that will be equals to some maybe numbers 1, 2, 3, and let's just quickly copy these two lines again and paste it over here, and let's pass this arr. Okay, and I'll make these two lines comment so that it doesn't print these two lines. So now if I save it, you can see the values are 1, 2, 3, and the data type is object, right? And then we have object literal. Okay, so I'll just write object literal, and that is nothing but, in Python it's called dictionary. Okay, so I'll just make a const variable called address, and that will be equals to, oops, equals to the curly braces, and inside the curly braces we have to pass some data, like the some data for the addresses. So I'll just write city is equals to Berlin, and then I'll just write country is equals to Germany. And by the way, it is not equals to, it's the colon symbol. Okay, so when you write some data inside an object, you have to write this colon symbol, not the equals to symbol. Okay, now let's just pass this address over here as well as here. Now if I save it, you can see, well, there is some error. Yeah, so that error is actually Berlin is not defined. That is because of Berlin is a string, and we already learned when you write string, you have to write that inside a quotation mark. So I'll just write a quotation, single quotation, double quotation, whatever you write over there. So Germany is also a string, so we have to write quotation over there. So now if I save it, so you can see the city is Berlin and country is Germany, right? So this is object literal, and then we have datetime method. We will make a totally separate lecture for this datetime object, but for now I'm just showing you the data type of that. Okay, so I'll just make it make a variable called today, and that will be equals to since datetime is an object, so we have to make an entity for that. So new date, that's it. Now if I just pass this today over here as well as here, now if I save it, you can see the actual value of today is Sunday, July 19, 2020. The time is actually it is the current date, current time, and current all those things. So I am now in Kolkata, that is GMT plus 5 hours 30 minutes, and it is showing the time over there, date, and day, and the type is object. Okay, so these are all the data types, and now we will see how to convert like string to number, number to string, boolean to string, or something, those kind of things. Okay, so let's just quickly comment this whole thing. Okay, and you can see we actually used different variables for different data types, but now we are going to use a single variable for every data types. Okay, so I'll just make it like type conversion, and now let's just make variable called VAL. Since we are going to change this variable every time, so we can't really use this const. We actually can use late or var. So I'm going to use the late VAL. Okay, that is a variable method. So we initialize this variable. Now we are going to actually see how to change number to string. Okay, and let's make this VAL is equals to 5, and after that we actually wanna see the output, right? So output will be a comment, and then we are going to write console dot log, and then the VAL. Then we also need the type, so console dot log type of val. Okay, and the string has one extra object, that is a length. Okay, we can actually calculate like what is the length of the particular string. Okay, so we are going to actually print that thing as well. So I'll just write val dot length. Okay, now if I save it and run it, you can see it printed the value, that is 5. The data type is actually number, but the length is undefined. That is because of numbers don't have the length. The strings only have the length. So we actually need to convert this 5 into a string. You can do it in 3 ways. First one is just put a quotation outside of the number. So now it is a string. Now if I save it, yeah, you can see it is a string. You can see data type is string and the length is 1. And there is one more way, that is you can actually use the string method. So string, then the parenthesis, then the value, like number, boolean, whatever you can just write there. Okay, now if I save it again, so you can see it still shows the 5 as a string and the length is 1. Okay, and there is one more thing, that is toString. We will see that later. Okay, and now let's see how to convert boolean to string. Okay, I'll just make this val again. Val is equals to string of true. Okay, now if I save it, now you can see true is a string now, not a boolean value. So it is a string, the length is 4. That means there are 4 letters in that particular word. So similarly, if you just pass false over here, it should be false, and save it. Yeah, you can see false is now again a string, not a boolean value. Similarly, you can basically change any data type into a string by using this string method. Just write string before that, then the parenthesis, then inside the parenthesis you can just write any kind of data types, numbers, booleans, then date, time, array, anything. So now let's see about the third method, that is toString. Okay, so let's just comment this all, and let's make VAL is equals to 5, which means it is a number. Now if I save it, you can see 5 is a number and the length is undefined. And now if you wanna change it to a string, just put this 5 inside a parenthesis and then just write toString. Okay, and now if I save it, now you can see 5 is a string and the length is 1. Similarly, you can just write VAL is equals to true. That means now it is a boolean. So now if I save it, you can see true is a boolean and the length is undefined, because length is an object of string only. So I just need to put it inside the parenthesis and just write toString. Okay, now if I save it, you can see true is a string now and the length is 4. Okay, so in this way you can also change any data type into a string. So now let's see how to convert a string into a number. So I'll just make a comment that is like string to number. Okay, and let's just make val is equals to string 5. So we already learned that if you put the number inside the quotation mark, now it is a string. So now if I save it, you can see 5 is a string and the length is 1. Similarly, when we wanna convert a number into string, we use the string method. So that's how we also use the number method. Okay, so I'll just put this inside the parenthesis and I'll just write over here number. Okay, now if I save it, you can see 5 is now a number and it obviously don't have any length, but the number has one object that is toFixed. Okay, so I'll just quickly make this comment and we will use that thing. So console.log, and then we have val.toFixed. Okay, and this toFixed basically means like it will print how many decimal points you want. For example, if you put blank, it will not going to print any kind of decimal points. So now if I run it, you can see it printed only 5. But if you put 2 over here, that means it is going to add 2 more decimal points. Okay, now if I save it, you can see it printed 5.00. Okay, similarly if you put 5 over here, it will add 5 more decimal points. Okay, I'll just remove this one. I just want a default one, that is the number only. Okay, and there is one thing I forgot to mention when I told when I teach you the data types, like in other languages like C, C++, Java, if you want to initialize a number, you need to use the integer float keywords. Like if you want to initialize only the integer values, then you have to use int before the variable name. Similarly, when you want to use some float value, you need to write float before the variable name, right? But in JavaScript, you don't need to use that thing. Okay, it will automatically detect that thing. So because there is only one data type, that is number, there is no integer, no float, nothing else. So there is only single one, that is number. Okay, similarly if I just write 5.00 and if I run it, you can see still printed 5 over here as well as over here. That means after the decimal point, 0 is not a value, right? Because if I just write 5.10, that means 1 is a value but 0 is not a value, so it will just print 5.1 for the first case. You can see 5.1 for the first case, but for the last one, well, this toFixed method, we didn't pass 1 over here, so that's why it printed only the number. So if I just run it now, you can see it printed 5.1 also, and now if I write 2 over here, it will print 5.10. okay, so that's how this thing works. And now let's see how to convert boolean values into a number. Okay, so I'll just make it like boolean to number. Okay, and I'll just write val is equals to number, because you obviously need to use this method, number method, to convert any data type into a number. Okay, so I'll just write over here true. And you already know that if you wanna use the boolean methods, boolean values, you don't need to put that into a quotation mark. So if I just write this true inside the quotation mark, that means it will be considered as a string. And now it is considered as a boolean values. So I already told you true means 1 and false means 0, right? So now if I save it, you can see it printed 1 over here. Similarly, if I just write false over here, you can see it printed 0 over there, right? And there is like, I'll just write true over here, and now you can see it printed 1. And now we have null, right? Null data type to number. So I'll just write val is equals to number, and then I'll just pass null. Okay, actually null is not a value, right? But if you wanna convert this null in number, it will be 0, because 0 is also considered as a not a value. So now if I save it, you can see it printed 0, because null is kind of equivalent to 0. That's why it printed 0. But what if you wanna convert a string into a number? So let's just do that. Assume we have a string called hello world. Okay, I'll just write val is equals to number, and inside that we will just write hello world. So these are like letters, right? Hello world. Okay, so these are letters, right? These are not a number. If you wanna change it to the number, it will not going to change that into a number, because there is no equivalent number to this hello world keyword, right? So now if I save it, you can see it printed NaN. That means not a number. Okay, so hello world is not a number. You can't change this into a number data type. Okay, it is a string data type and it will stay there. Now for string, we have this toString method, right, to convert any data type into a string. Similarly, for number, we have parse int and parse float. So I'll just comment these whole things, and now let's just use that parse int. So val is equals to parse int, and then you can just pass anything over there, 100. Okay, 100, and it is in string. You can see it's under this inside the quotation marks. So now it is a string, and now it will actually convert this string into a number, that is 100, and it is going to run this code. Okay, so yeah, you can see 100, and this is a number, and this val dot to fixed is also 100, right? But if you just write 100.30, this is not an integer value, this is a float value. So it is going to convert this float into an integer. That is because of we use parse int. So now if I save and run it, you can see it's still printed 100 over there. That is because of this is a float value. So in that case, you just need to use parse float. Okay, this one. And yeah, so now if I save it and run it, you can see it printed 100.3. that because of like the last 0 has no values after the decimal point, right? But if you just use these 2 over here, like 2 fixed 2, that means it is going to print up to 2 decimal points. So yeah, now if I save it, you can see it printed 100.30 at the last one, right? So in this way you can convert into an integer or float type data type. And this 0 actually has no values, that's why it printed 100.3. but if you just write 100.31, that means 3 and 1 both are value. So now if I save it, you can see it printed 100.31 in the first one. Okay, so now let's see some operations with this number data type and string data type. So I'll just put comment these whole things, and now let's just create 2 variables. So I'll just write let num1, and that will be equals to 5, and let num2, and that will be equals to 10. And now assume we wanna use let sum, and that will be equals to num1 plus num2. Okay, and now let's just print those things. So console.log, we wanna print only the sum. So now if I save it, you can see it printed 15. But you can see it added automatically this semicolon over here, but we didn't wrote semicolon till now in any of the lines. You can actually write these semicolons, but in JavaScript it automatically add this semicolon after every line. So that's why there is no error, but there are certain conditions where you have to use this semicolon. We will see that in later lectures. So I'll just remove this semicolon, and you can clearly see it still ran that code and it printed 15. There is no error actually. So there are certain sections when you have to use this semicolon. We will make a totally different lecture for this semicolon thing. Okay, and now these two are actually numbers, so that's why it added these two numbers and it becomes 15. But if you make this 5 as a string, okay, because we wrote this inside the quotation, so now 5 is a string. Now if you add this 5 with 10 and run this code, so now you can see it becomes 510, right? So that's because of it didn't add this 5 and 10, it actually concatenate these two things. Let me just quickly open the whiteboard and let me just show you how this thing actually works. Okay, so when you add 5 plus 10, it becomes 15 because these are integers, right? Integers, flat, float, both considered as a number. So that's why if you just write 10.5 also, it becomes 15.5. Obviously, because integer, float, they all are numbers. But if you make this 5 as a string and plus 10, and that will be like it will put 5 first, then it will put 10, so that becomes 510. So this is actually a concatenate. Okay, so that's how this thing works actually. So if you wanna add two strings, you can't really do that thing. You have to actually make the string to a number, otherwise it will not work. So I already show you that if you just write 5 plus 10.5, that means the first one is an integer and the second one is float. And now if I save this JS file, you can see it printed 15.5, which I already show you that if you add integer with float, because both are numbers, so there will be no error, it will just add normally. But if you wanna add two strings, it will actually concatenate these two things. Okay, it will not going to add these two numbers. Okay, so yeah, that's all about this video, data types, and how to convert one data type to another and how to use these data types.